someone is able to spot the signs and symptoms in you, it's a little bit like the flu. You will get well again. It can take a little bit of time to get well again. And I remember having one lady, she actually said to me, Darren, you saved my life the other day. And she did it in front of her own director. So it kind of like stopped the conversation a little bit. And she said, I listened to what you said about it being time limited. She said, I had planned my suicide for the weekend after I did your training course. And I decided to hang on in there. And she said, I'm so glad I did. Because what was causing me to go there has moved on, and I've spoken to my friends about it, shared it, and it's made a massive difference. So, and I've heard so many cases like that. So, mental health first aid is a really, really valuable skill to have.
Hello, beautiful podcast listeners. Welcome back to the Fit with Frank podcast. It's a huge one this week. There's no under-talking this. It's massive. The biggest topic right now, mental health. Certainly after the tragic news of the weekend of the young Caroline Flack, who we all know from TV, taking her own life, just 40 years old. I mean, it's horrific to think she got to that stage. But I'm trying to take a positive from it and see that now we're all talking about mental health, which is a brilliant thing and can only hopefully help more people. That's my reason for this podcast today, coming out far earlier than I intended. I hope that someone today listening can take some positive from it, whether it's for yourself or for someone around you. I hope it can, because I've got a great man here today, Daran Bailey. He's a mental health first aider, and he's working with a company I've worked with called Asta Group to help their staff train themselves to identify signs in others that may red flag some issue around mental health, and then provide tools and support for them to help change the course of their life. They do it in many ways. I'm interested because I know that what I'm doing at Fit with Frank with exercise is helping people with mental health. I don't fully know why that is yet, and that's partly my reason for chatting to Daran here today. I want to understand it. Why is it, or how is it we can help more people improve their mental health? And what tools and actions can you take right now to do it, to actually take some action? So listen in. I hope it's helpful. Please comment wherever you are. Let me know you listened. And if you do need help, you need support, you're not alone. There's people out there that want to listen. They want to help. You can feel better. And I hope today's podcast helps you realise that. So take over, Daran Bailey.
So can you tell me what a mental health first aider is?
Okay, a mental health first aider is somebody very much like a normal first aider, where a first aider deals with the physical side of injuries. Mental health first aider, they actually focus in more on the emotional aspects. So if someone is suffering with stress, anxiety, depression, even suicidal thoughts, they are trained to actually spot the signs and symptoms that somebody might not be themselves. They get taught how to open the questions, start a question out. How many times do you ask how somebody is? Most people just say, how are you? Well, you actually have to ask it twice, because the first time you ask it, if I said to you, how are you?
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah,
you're great. Yeah, and you do it in a corridor sometimes when you're passing. People say, yeah, how are you? You don't even hear the answer when you walk past. But actually, if you sit down and you say to no, really, how are you? And then you zip it, as I call it, so you don't say any more, you wait, and that's when you've got past that pre-programmed response. So we teach people how to do things like that. Conversation starters, where we use a scale of 1 to 10, so with 1 being really, really a little bit sort of worried about you self-harming, maybe suicide, or 10 absolutely in love with everything and everyone in the world. Where would you put yourself on that scale of 1 to 10?
Me.
And then again, you zip it, and you let them feed it back. And you usually find after a session, they will have gone at least 1 notch up on that scale of 1 to 10, because they've just had a chance to talk about how they really feel, voice it, get it out there. So we do all of the conversation starters, we do listening skills exercises with them, we teach them about all the different anxiety disorders, we teach them about self-harm, how to interact with somebody, but mostly it's about signposting. So they have to have their own personal boundaries in place, because they're not therapists, they're not psychiatrists, they are literally trained to spot the signs and symptoms and then signpost on. So for us, they would be signposting to our employment assistance program, or maybe referring them to the doctor, just saying, go and see the doctor, or liaising with the manager as well sometimes, if that person isn't able to show how they're feeling.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think that would have been around all the time, wouldn't you? I would have. But we don't, do we? Like you just said, that how are you thing's the classic. I do it every day.
Yeah.
You know, even with our members that I work with, I'm like, how are you? And you go, okay, and then you move on. But you're saying the second time, how are you?
Yeah.
No, really.
If there's some signs and symptoms that you're picking up on, like unusual behaviour that's not normally their patterns of behaviour, isolating themselves, sometimes it's worth just going into a little room and just saying the question twice. And you have to leave the silence there. It's really important because a lot of people don't like the silence, but actually if you fill the silence with your voice, what have you just taken away from them? You've taken away from them the opportunity to say how they feel, and you might not get that opportunity again. If that makes sense. It's about, we teach them to work with the silence as well, which is very, very important when you're asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it in a corporate environment, which is obviously got a bit more system to it, but I imagine that helping all of us, like even at home.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, at home, anywhere.
Absolutely, it works. It's not just for business, it's for you, and it's for your friends and family as well. I know several people over the years who it's actually saved their lives. Or the life of a loved one, being able to have those skills in place. We had a lady the other day, and I do mention that sometimes suicidal thoughts, there's usually a pathway that leads you there, but there are rational thoughts that you're having which seem completely rational at the time, but if someone is able to spot the signs and symptoms in you, it's a little bit like the flu. You will get well again. It can take a little bit of time to get well again. And I remember having one lady, she actually said to me, Darren, you saved my life the other day. And she did it in front of her own director. So it kind of like stopped the conversation a little bit, and she said, I listened to what you said about it being time limited. She said, I had planned my suicide for the weekend after I did your training course, and I decided to hang on in there, and she said, I'm so glad I did, because what was causing me to go there has moved on, and I've spoken to my friends about it, shared it, and it's made a massive difference. So, and I've heard so many cases like that, so mental health first aid is a really, really valuable skill to have.
Wow. Yeah, no wonder you're so passionate. I can imagine the reward personally for you hearing that and seeing improvements is great. So from your perspective, when you were sort of, if you were, let's not say building the perfect human, but if you were trying to manage a human the best you could, what role would what I do, exercise, play in someone having really strong, good mental health?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I tend to use the analogy of a yin yang. I don't know if you've ever heard of the yin yang, the Chinese thing. Yeah. For me, it's about a holistic point of view. So it doesn't just involve the head, doesn't just involve the body. It's the holistic point of view involves the whole you. And if one part of you is kind of like not working, is missing, that means you're out of sync and your yin yang can't spin properly. So I think if you're not looking after your health and your well-being through exercise and the rest of it, it affects your well-being to a big degree. I mean, I mentioned about the chimp earlier on that we were talking about, and how your inner chimp can be hypervigilant, particularly if you're stressed in a stressed environment. So what it does is it's a caveman instinct. It can't tell you that actually you need to go and do some exercise, but what it does is it tells you that actually something's not quite right at the moment. Years ago it was great, because you could literally hit another caveman, you could go and kill something. That's what our body wants to do, but now the inner chimp, it doesn't know that we're in modern times and we have electricity and we don't need to hit other cavemen anymore, but it still triggers off those certain reactions in the body. So you can't hit your boss anymore, it's not acceptable. You can't run out of a meeting anymore, and you can't freeze if someone asks you a question and you need to have the answers. Those kind of things put you under pressure, and your chimp thinks, I'm under attack. So it starts to dump the adrenaline, it starts to dump the cortisol and all the rest of it into your bloodstream. And if you're just sat there and you're not doing anything with that, it makes you unwell. It hardens up your arteries, it affects your heart, all of it. So you've got to do some exercise to get rid of it, to use it up. Otherwise, it can have a real negative effect on you.
So that could be what's happening with they've had that feeling of the inner chimp getting, let's say, raging inside.
Yeah.
And there's an outlet somewhere. I want to do something. And they chose to exercise.
Absolutely.
And that was the first trigger, should we say, in their progress.
Yeah. It's literally, the inner chimp, I always describe it as being it reacts 30 times quicker than any other part of your brain. And the reason that it does that is because it needs to keep you alive. Yeah, it's an instinctive reaction. It's sometimes a little bit like someone cuts you up at the roundabout, or you let somebody out in traffic and they don't give you that little hand up to say thanks. It's the red, it's the red mist. That's your inner chimp, yeah. And you'll probably shout something or do a rude gesture at them, and then like a minute or less, you're thinking that was a bit inappropriate. Yeah, or when you kind of like shout at a child, because a child's chimp is really good at triggering an adult's chimp, and you might say something and moments later you think, that was not particularly grown up of me. Or you'll get a stroppy email and you're like, what the hell, and you'll fire off a stroppy email back at them, and then they're looking for the recall button because your chimp calms down. And it kind of like, then you think a bit more rationally. So it's that's what your inner chimp does.
Interesting, because that might be why I would, if I get that inner chimp, which I'm quite fortunate. I don't get that too often. Maybe because I'm quite laid back.
And you exercise,
quite fortunate.
yeah.
Well, what I do is, if I do feel that, I'll go and do something. Yeah, I will. I'll go and do the run. I'll go and do some stretching.
Yeah. Get it out.
It's always my go-to.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm really interested in what you do as a mental health first aider.
Yeah.
You identify that first sign, and you're looking around other people. But even for someone listening in themselves, like if there's this chimp's becoming more frequent or more ragey.
Yeah. Are they having memory problems? That's usually a key way, because when you get stressed, your brain just goes automatically to the part of your brain which thinks, okay, how am I going to fight this stressor? What's going on here? So it shuts down the parts to your memory. Okay, so a key factor, if you're struggling with your memory and your social skills and the rest of it, that's usually because the pathway to accessing those parts of the brain is shut down, because your brain doesn't need those. Chimp doesn't think it needs it. It thinks all I need to know is how to fight, run, and all of the rest of it. So it kind of like takes you down the wrong pathway there, which needs to correct.
And presumably lots of us have that festering in us for a long time.
Yeah.
And is that where you would potentially see bigger problems down the line?
Absolutely. Long-term enduring mental health problems. For me, I have my own skill, which I use mindfulness quite a lot, because mindfulness through MRI scans, I was reading in a book the other day, is actually proven to shrink the amygdala, which makes it calm down. And when it calms down, it's not seeing threats all of the time. And then you can access better parts of the brain for more creativity, instant answers to different things. And of course, once you've got control of those aspects, it calms it down even more. So mindfulness is really good, and I teach it here in the company as well, so it's really popular.
Can I ask what mindfulness is to you? Because I've had different responses to that. When you say mindfulness, what does that look like? Because I think it's different for a lot of us.
It is. For me, it's not about thinking about nothing, because if you ever tried to think of nothing,
I can't.
You can't. You'll fail. You'll absolutely fail. So it's about paying attention to something in a systematic way, and that can be anything. You can do it walking. Okay, you can do it running. When you're running or walking, something that you never normally think about is, okay, do I put my heel down first when I run? Do I run with my toes down first? Do I feel the outside of my feet, or do I feel the inside of my feet? Am I slightly pigeon-toed? And can I change it? My dominant foot that I put down first, can I swap it? Yeah. So you're thinking about something there, and you're not thinking about the stuff from the past, beating yourself up about it, and you're not anticipating the stuff from the future. You're in the moment. Okay. Me, I tend to use my breath, because we breathe all of the time subconsciously. We have this thing that's going on. It makes us breathe. When we stop, we die. Literally. So for me, my tool that I carry everywhere is my breath. So I will just focus in and out on my breath. And then when I get to a certain point, I just say, okay, brain, go where you want to go. Do what you want to do. And guess what it doesn't do? It doesn't go anywhere. It's quite happy to just sit there, because it's probably the first time it's had the chance to rest. I always use the analogy of a tumble dryer with a load of clothes spinning around. If you think of the clothes as your stressors, all the things that are going on in your life, it's really difficult to pick out the little things that you can work on. But if you practice mindfulness, it allows the clothes to just drop down just for a minute when you switch it on to pause. And then you can take out the little bits, and you've already brought down some of your stressors a little bit before life starts going again. So,
got it.
Yeah.
You've explained that very well. It's because I find our clients know and aware they need to, but I don't think we fully grasp what it is. And I've always argued it's not the activity itself that would class it as mindfulness. Because, for instance, Headspace is quite a popular app people are doing.
Yeah, really good.
It's great. It's a great tool. But I said my experience of it was probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done, because I couldn't, for whatever reason, it didn't put me in that state of only thinking of the present. I'm thinking, who's looking at me? What am I looking at? That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, playing football is my one thing, I would argue, is the only time where I ever really don't think of anything else.
Gardening, you can do mindfulness gardening. If it's something that you enjoy, walking, if you're walking in the countryside. I did something with my daughter the other day, and we lay in the hammock in the garden, and she looked up at the clouds and she said, Dad, that cloud looks like the dragon from Mulan. And I was like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? And that one there looks like a pig. That one there looks like an elephant. And before we knew it, I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about the stuff that was going on in my life, that was coming up in my life. I was just focused on the moment. And that's what it's all about. There's nothing scientific about it. There's no, sitting in the lotus position or downward facing dog and trying to practice thinking about nothing. It doesn't work like that. Are we okay to stand up with that
Yeah, of course,
okay,
yeah.
right. So Frank, what I would like you to do is if you just sort of stand that way, so we're looking at the camera, okay?
Yeah.
I would like you to think of something right now which is really important to you. Maybe a family member, something that your business, that you're trying to get up on the road. Somebody's going to come and try and take that from you. Yeah, they're going to try and take it away from you. And this is something that you would fight for, maybe even die for. It means that much to you. Okay, have you got it?
Got it.
Lift your arm out for me. Okay, right out there. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do is think of that thing. Okay, just keep thinking of it. You got it in your head? Okay, now I'm going to try and push your arm down. Do you see the bounce back?
Yes.
Yeah, that's your resilience. Yeah, not having that, you're not going to take that away from me. Okay, put your arm down for a second. Now, what I'd like you to think of is something. The weather outside is really cloudy at the moment, miserable. We'll probably have this for a few more days yet, and it's rained almost every day, isn't it? Yeah, you're feeling a bit depressed, feeling a bit low naturally because of the way the weather is at the moment. Maybe your self-esteem's taken a little knock recently. Didn't get to go to the gym when you should have gone to the gym. Yeah. Hold your arm out for me now. Okay. Right. Just hold it out for me. Right. Now try and stop you pushing your arm down. Yeah.
It's my weaker arm.
There's no resilience there. Yeah. And that was literally. And you're a fit guy. Yeah. So you should have been able to push my hand back up. But you notice the difference when you're thinking positively. Something's motivating you to. My mind is really depressed. I'm not feeling too good at the moment. And if you do that to somebody that actually isn't in a particularly good place, you'll see them go down. There's no resistance. You can just wipe them out. I can do that to any size bloke, and it does that every time. So it's just a good way to actually show how your mental thoughts affect you physically. But of course, if you've got physical problems, that affects you mentally as well. So if you have an injury and you can't do the stuff that you used to do anymore, that affects you mentally as well. So it's a whole holistic approach to it as well.
But you can start from the mind instantly.
Yeah.
I think that's why we get the immediate. Someone who's never exercised before, and then they achieve their first workout. It's a big moment for people.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they hold themselves differently. They're stronger in it. Like there's, and you always wonder why that is, because I know physically you can't make yourself that much stronger in that. In one session you can't. But there's something in them that
sense of
changes.
achievement.
And I just want to harness that, and I think it comes back to an awareness of yourself. If you're blessed to have that awareness of yourself, but your proactive mental health first aid scheme that you've rolled out is fantastic in that other people are looking out for you.
Yeah.
Identifying signs that you're maybe in that down, unresilient mode. What was the
I had a whole room of people just a moment ago, and you could see that they were kind of like really. They came because they wanted to learn a bit more about it. And when you start talking about the memory issues and all of the rest of it, it starts to kick in. And being hangry, something which I haven't mentioned because we have we have adrenaline, we have cortisol, and the rest of it goes into our system. We also have something else called oxytocin, which is really good for helping with stress. That's about bringing people together, but we don't let it do its job very much nowadays. Years ago, we used to form tribes, and if you were under attack, you used to get oxytocin would make you come together as a tribe to fight it. Nowadays, we're taught you've got to stand on your own 2 feet. So we have to struggle with it. We're not meant to do that. We didn't evolve to be that way. But one of the things that people don't realise about cortisol is it actually it reduces your blood sugar levels when you're stressed. And what it starts to do is it makes you a bit grumpy, a bit snappy, and people start to get hangry. My wife gets it, and I know after 20 odd years, I need to take her to a restaurant or somewhere. Don't talk. Just take her for food. It's when people start doing this with their food, it's mine, get off. It's a natural reaction. It's basically our caveman instinct kicking in and telling us, you need to go hunting. You need to eat, basically. But of course, when you've got a nice, healthy diet laid out in front of you, and you forget to go and eat your healthy food because you're stressed, what do you reach for instead?
Yeah, the good stuff.
You reach for the biscuits, the sugar, the crisps, and then of course the body will take that on board and it stores its brown fat. And because your body thinks there maybe is a famine coming, there's a food shortage coming, and the more you do that, the more fat it puts on. And of course, when you start gaining weight, how do you feel about yourself? Yeah, it's a self, devastating cycle that you get into. So it's about snapping yourself out of that. And sometimes you've got to think about your mental well-being first. Okay, what is my purpose? Why do I want to do this exercise? What's it going to get me? And sometimes it's about understanding all about the caveman instinct and the rest of it. And then once you've got that and they understand what their purpose is, then the role comes into play, and that's when they start to do the exercise. Stress levels start to go. Immediately, your inner chimp starts to calm down a little bit because he's getting to express himself properly through exercise and the rest of it. And before you know it, the weight starts to come off and you start to feel better about yourself.
And it could start from someone just identifying it. I've got so many questions for you, but I'm going to have to. I know you've got stuff to do today, so I'm going to ask you one final thing. Is for anyone listening who maybe has opened their eyes and ears to something new, where can they go? Okay. Maybe you told me about a book earlier that I've read and you've read.
Yeah, there's a great book called The Chimp Paradox, which is a great place to start. I would say about your chimp though, some people will say, oh, they'll do something, say, oh, it's my inner chimp, sorry, it wasn't me. Yeah. Actually, you are responsible for your inner chimp, okay? You can't go around blaming everything on your chimp. No, you are responsible for it, okay? But if they do want to get in contact with me, the best route is to go to the Aster Foundation, ASTER Foundation. We've got a website now. They can find me through that, and I do a lot of work with companies. All of the money that we raise through doing courses externally, that goes into supporting young children in school, so I can go out and train mental health ambassadors, 14, 15-year-olds, and hopefully make a whole generation become more aware of mental health and get rid of the stigma. Because I think if we start at a certain level, they're going to go on to be adults, and we will get to a point where mental health will be as normal as physical health.
Yeah, and like you say, the first aid as we know it.
Yeah.
It's more than a plaster on the arm. This
Absolutely.
Is starting from the very. I really think what you're doing is great, and that's why I'm here, absorbing everything you're
doing. Brilliant.
I think it's amazing. Listeners, definitely check out, if you haven't, just Google mental health first aiders, see what it is, because it was an eye opener for me. And I think you can really help yourself, your family.
Yeah. If you've got the skills, you've got the knowledge, you have an understanding of what makes you do what you do, because there's always a reason why you're doing that, even though sometimes you can't see it. It's usually a symptom of an underlying issue, and if you get to understand what that symptom is and the underlying issue is, you can change it. You do something about it.
Love it. And anyone who's doing my programs to lose weight, I will always be mentioning this.
Brilliant.
In its own realm. So thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Frank. It's great.
Let's get to it. Thank you. Love that.